Okay, let's see if we've got all of this happening. I hope I'm recording. We will see. Welcome, welcome everyone. Oh, wow. This is my second attempt to do this recording, and it is recording to ask for your help. I need the help of those who don't already believe in boycotts and have no interest and have made no plans to join the People's Union in boycotting Amazon for this week. Today's Friday, March 7th, 2025. I'm Nikki Davis, and I want to speak to those I love about why I'm making a plea for your help and why I wish you would join me in this boycott. And speaking directly to those who don't believe in boycotts and those I love who don't want to talk politics, especially now. And those I love who don't believe in politics, at least talking about it, especially publicly, don't believe in boycotts, don't believe that the government of the United States is even worth fighting for, even worth not buying products and services from Amazon for 1 week, who don't care about this effort. So I'm speaking to those who I love. I'm not speaking to those I don't love. I'm speaking to those I love. And many people I love don't join me in boycotts or protests, don't even like to talk politics with me because I get so passionate. Um, I can get upset. I can start cursing. And so they don't join me. They love me, but they won't join me. And they will certainly not join in boycotting Amazon because of the wonderful products and services that Jeff Bezos has purchased. So it's under a monopoly that I believe violates antitrust laws, and allows one human being to profit so enormously in the multi-billions, and allows an unspeakable difference between who makes those incredible products that are under the corporate monopoly of Jeff Bezos and who delivers those incredible services under the corporate monopoly of Jeff Bezos, and how Jeff Bezos has been enabled as a singular human being to unfairly influence and criminally manipulate the United States government and the American people's access to the truth and to a fair election. And that's why I'm doing this, is because I believe that boycotts deserve a chance to work. they deserve the chance. And you have to do them to see what the effect is. And you have to do them long enough to collect the data and affect change. And I need so many more people than the wonderful humans all over the globe who are joining the People's Union and are joining in this boycott. I want to thank those wonderful folks in Germany and Sweden and Denmark. And oh my God, I don't even know you and I love you because you have been so excited to help Americans deal with our fascism. And I'm particularly moved by the Germans because they know that Donald Trump, in an entertainingly dangerous way, highlights the teachings of Adolf Hitler and serves to harm Americans in the way that Adolf Hitler harmed Germans before World War II. And I agree with all of our incredible American psychiatrists who took the risk to teach Congress about malignant sadistic narcissism and the signs of malignant sadistic narcissism, and understanding how dangerous a single human who exhibits the symptoms of malignant sadistic narcissism, and how in human history, humans who have this type of very rare disordered thinking, psychopathic disordered thinking, that is addicted to sadistic behavior and unable to see beyond a growing narcissism that doesn't allow the human experiencing this rare condition to have any empathy toward those they harm. So it's more than just being entertaining as a liar and to be charming as a liar and to be resolute in threats. That threats are the one part that's not lying, that threaten to harm a group of people is the one part that's not a lie. Determined to harm a demographic of people that the dangerous one, the criminal one, sees as a game, like the way we do video games, a game to wipe out in order to win. And I believe that both Donald Trump and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk exhibit these extremely dangerous mental conditions that create psychopathic criminality and find them as dangerous as Adolf Hitler. All three of them. All three of them exhibit this type of behavior. And I believe that democracy is one of the best antidotes to malignant, sadistic, narcissist criminals. Simply because democracy, as we know it in America, was established long before 1776. It was established among the indigenous nations, and by best records, the best official estimate is 1141. So that is over 400 years, over 500 years before the Declaration of Independence. It's actually, oh, it's over 600 years. From 1776 to from 1141 to 1776, so 600 years before the signing of the Declaration of Independence in the War of Liberation from Great Britain, the British colonizers, who called themselves the founding fathers of the United States of America, fashioned American democracy in the roots of what's called the Great Law of Peace, which was established by 1141. Some records say it was established in the year 1000, so 141 years before that. But for sure, the historians and all of our wonderful anthropologists who look back at our indigenous history here in America, pre-colonization, pre-landing of any ship from Europe, whether it was a warship, a slave ship, or the ship of those seeking freedom from despotism and terrorism from their European original countries, escaping here for beauty and freedom and a piece of this democracy that was created by the indigenous nations, particularly, and this is the one we give credit to, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. That was originally 5 nations of indigenous nations who formed democracy as we know it and named it, in the best English translation, the Great Law of Peace. And they shared the Great Law of Peace with the British colonial founding fathers of the United States of America, who loved, oh my goodness, it was the antidote to the insanity and disease and cruelty and classism and terrorism and deception and corruption that was happening among the monarchies of Europe. And I'm so grateful that all these different nations from abroad, foreign nations, came to this land to be taught what the Great Law of Peace was. And they could take it back and create democracy in their indigenous nations, or if that was impossible, the indigenous nations, if you were of right mind and similar mind, would even adopt you and want you to stay here and join the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So as in my DNA. I was so excited to learn the truth that white male supremacy, insanity, and violence blocked from my ancestors to know the truth. Matter of fact, my indigenous and African ancestors were so barbarically treated that they were forbidden to keep the language and the truth about our ancestry. But now I'm able to find out the facts and the truth about my own ancestry, and my own ancestry by DNA, not just by what they call the Indian card. By DNA shows that I am associated with the Haudenosaunee Confederacy from the southeastern nations by blood. We did not join the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which I'm actually ashamed of. We joined the British and formed 5 nations that were called by the British to be civilized nations. So the Sladji nation split. There's many of us who didn't agree with the chiefs at the time. In colonial times, we didn't agree to join the civilized nations, but the most outspoken chiefs said that we will join the British and we will be as the British and we will be a part of the British people and we will join the United States of America and not the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So my own DNA knows democracy, has seen its effects, but once the Europeans came and they brought with them an evil called white male supremacy ideology that allowed people who looked like men to lie and deceive and cheat and then terrorize a people they defeat by deception, not by might and not with integrity, with horrid and unheard of deception. These men, white male supremacist terrorists, were unlike any other human that anyone else has ever seen. They had no capacity for empathy and no problem with direct hypocrisy and lies and deception and terrorism. They could rape you, your child, and then lie about it, kill you, and then bury you in a hidden grave. We had never even come across any human like this. So this type of terrorism, my ancestors weren't prepared for. And it's sad because when I look at the history of the warring nations here, pre the Great Law of Peace, we did have that type of cruelty, except not so much in deception. It was very out and open, very overt. So this is a new type of human cruelty that had never been experienced before. And we've experimented with it on this land now for 249 years as an organized nation that is lying about its constitution and lying about its democracy. So we've been lying and been deceptive, and we manipulated the Great Law of Peace into white male supremacist capitalism. And there's incredible consequences for that. But it is a language, and it's called profit. Matter of fact, that was a defense of the Confederates to never give up their human slaves, no matter how inhumane they treated them, because they said a profit margin. They said it will be wiped out if you take away our slaves. So now we've got Elon Musk, who's not even American, coming here as a foreigner, making billions off of the understanding of white male supremacy trickery through legalese, so that he can profit with such a high margin above those who labor, who do everything for his profits. And he can make sure that he dehumanizes them in such a way that his profits are what people would call obscenely higher than those who actually do the work to deliver the services and the product. And Jeff Bezos is exactly the same, but not quite as demonic and criminal as Elon Musk. So we're starting with Jeff Bezos, with the People's Union doing this language of speaking profit margins and trying out the language of boycott to see if that is a way to engage with Jeff Bezos. It's worked beautifully before. It's worked with the owners of Uber, very short period of time. They apologized, and fired certain people, and changed policies because of it. So boycotts have had wonderful success in America in order to speak to those who have lost their humanity in the gaining of profits. Now, we don't know about Jeff Bezos. He might be unreachable even in boycott communications, but it's worth a try. It's worth trying to speak the language of numbers to someone who has no language of the heart and no language of humanity and no language of law. Doesn't care if you break laws, breaks laws all the time. You can buy judges, politicians, you can pay off people, and you can buy time with enough money. That's why you don't care if you harm people and if you are criminal, because your numbers will stay high because of the way that you can manipulate white male supremacy English language under law. And those who earn $600 an hour know how to protect criminals, even the biggest organized criminals like Donald Trump and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. Those lawyers know how to protect criminals because they can manipulate the same language that was created to oppress people, right? The British Commonwealth, the first language of that they try to pretend that anybody else had any other rights besides the king. It's a language of oppression and of exclusion. And it's an elitist language that you have to have lots of money to even have the expert lawyers to even speak for you. So we have these amazing criminals who are incredibly organized with almost 500 years of white male supremacy on their side in America to make sure that they gain an immunity to the laws that they harm other people with. And so usually boycott is the language the people can use with these very rare and very disturbed human beings. And we need numbers to speak the language the best way. So that's why I'm asking, please just try it one day at a time. Try not utilizing Amazon products or Whole Foods or engaging in Goodreads. I love engaging on Goodreads. It's one of my favorite platforms because I'm around writers who reveal so much to my spirit and feed my knowledge. So it's even a sacrifice for me just not to engage on Goodreads for a week. We won't talk about the wonderful food quality of Whole Foods. Oh my goodness, it's way above any of the options. So far above Safeway or Giant or Costco. Oh my goodness, Whole Food was a revolution in mega companies that supply groceries to the American people because it had a image of being earth friendly, right? Earth friendly, right? So not destroying the earth or animals in order to deliver groceries. Now, they've been known to certainly, because of any mega company, certainly have all kinds of white collar crime going on and horrible racism and misogyny under the Whole Foods company. But their delivery process was incredible to the consumer and raised the bar on what a grocery store is in America. So, man, I don't want to lower the luxury I have to be able to afford Whole Foods and go back down to plastic creating hell of Giant and Ralph and Safeway and all the other mega companies that deliver groceries to the masses. I wish everybody would raise up to Whole Foods, and I wish Whole Foods would even get better so that they can end the internal inhuman things that happened in mega companies that are started by white males, supremacists in America. But their delivery system is incredible. I don't want to stop that even for a week. The convenience is incredible alone. So I had to work to just look at my own privilege to be able to even afford Whole Foods, right? There's some friends of mine, they don't have to do anything to boycott Whole Foods because they can't afford it. And I'm one of those people that invest in my health. So if I'm going to use a mega grocery, it's going to be on the level of Whole Foods or greater. I'm not going down because I'm reversing diabetes and all kinds of chronic illnesses, and I need the best quality of food I can possibly get from an American grocery store. So it's a lot for me to give up, even just for 1 week, because I have to shop a little differently, right? And movies. Oh my God, I'm a wannabe, gotta be just starting filmmaker. I love movies and streaming, and sometimes Amazon Prime has some of the best filmmakers and stories. I don't even want to go a week without at least checking to see if something that I really need to see is on Amazon Prime and wasn't bought, right? Because also, when you're like Jeff Bezos, you can keep buying all sorts of amazing companies that do incredible work that you can never do, but you have the money, you have the influence, you have the practice, especially the criminal practice, on you can make a deal with anything you want, even if it violates antitrust laws, even if you're acting in organized criminal manner. When you have that kind of money, you can do it, right? That's always been the exclusivity under monarchies, right? Because the America allows white male supremacist terrorists to act like kings and pharaohs. They've never practiced the democracy of Hodnasi Confederacy because they can't give up the exclusivity of being toxic patriarchs who control all things, even the church itself. There's no real division between the church and the United States government. We can say there is, but why do you think we cause so much cruelty to anybody who's not Christian? Why do you think Muslims suffer so much in the United States of America? Because we have secret societies that cross and use religious ideology and methods of torture and control, but it's hidden. So you don't understand that this myth of separation between religion and state, which is genius to do, because that way people's differences in religion don't affect the equity and the justice for all. But oh my, we're so corrupt here, and we're such liars that we have the most evil, cruel form of what's called Christianity influencing our government, because these churches, which have absolutely fulfilled the understanding of cults, are so powerful, and they own so much land, and they influence so many politicians, and they're granted nonprofit status, even though they create horrible crimes against humanity, especially against women, especially against children. Horrible crimes against humanity are done under some of the biggest Christian churches of the United States. And I'm so glad that the attorney generals finally, after all the time, went to look into the Roman Catholic rapists, pedophile rapists against children, and they just scratched the surface. They haven't even begun to look at the real crimes that are hidden and covered over by something as big as the Roman Catholic Church. And I can talk about them directly because I was indoctrinated into the Roman Catholic Church. That's how I was born. I'm baptized and completely indoctrinated into the Roman Catholic. So I speak with my experience. I already know so many of them, my friends, who it wasn't Roman Catholics, it was other Christian churches, but they absolutely believed they were 100% cults, and they're working so hard to get out of them. And some of them envy the influence and the criminality of Roman Catholic Church. And we're considered a minority, right? We only had one president, and now with Biden, two who were Roman Catholics. So, and if we're the minority of the religions, can you imagine how deep this lie is about white male supremacists who have fashioned dogma and changed even religious organizations to make sure that white male supremacy is even indoctrinated on a spiritual level for Americans. So we can't even get away from it in our churches. So it all works together. If you're a white male supremacist, whether you're a so-called religious leader, white male supremacy in religion gave the right to eminent domain. That was done by the popes in colonization. So we've got the most insane hypocrisy, because out of 249 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence, we have not practiced actual democracy, which demands a balance between the feminine and the masculine mind and leadership. Look at the Hodnasi Confederacy website right now. Stop right now, because they still exist. Isn't that amazing? They still exist. Look at their website and look at their symbol and see where women, what the role of women is in true democracy, in the great law of peace. So you'll see we never practiced it. That's why the Nazi Confederacy didn't join into the United States, because they wouldn't allow women. That's the first big hypocrisy. You can't have democracy unless you allow a balance and an equity between male and female energy in leadership. So we've been doing it wrong for 249 years and getting the results of toxic patriarchy and the results of white male supremacy, no matter how rare it is to find a true psychotic white male supremacist terrorist. The ideology is throughout everything that is considered American since 1776. That's 249 years of an ideology that is a direct opposite of democracy. So Jeff Bezos is a white male supremacist who does not allow the divine feminine power to balance out the ambitions for profit, to say that is inhumane and that is the wrong thing, and that it will destroy yourself spiritually and destroy the integrity of what it is you're trying to do. That's what a divine feminine mind can do. That's why they are so essential. Divine feminine knows automatically, can sense the corruption of toxic patriarchy and balance. Masculine femininity is essential for democracy. You can't have patriarchy and have democracy. You can certainly have a male president, but if he does not come with an equally privileged feminine quality to literally veto without discussion the capacity for the one and single-mindedness of male toxicity, then you have no check and balance system. And we have no check and balance system. We have an imaginary statue called justice as this little blonde and blind femme, and she doesn't do anything. Look how long it took just to get one female even on the Supreme Court. So this insanity in America that's anti-democracy in its behavior, yet in its words, has the concept of the great law of peace, which is one nation under, and we say God, but the indigenous do not agree with the white male supremacy concept of God as an old white male sky God who punishes his own children, tests his own children, and demonizes women. That's not the concept that the indigenous hold for the supreme energy. That's why we call it, in all our nations, agree with the English translation of Great Spirit. We have so many different names for the concept of divine consciousness and universal supreme love that unites all people. We have so many words for that oneness. That is the only way that very different and opposing nations can be united is under a concept of oneness. And white male supremacy already doesn't allow women. So there's no oneness. There's one-sided, and it gets toxic and sick and extremely violent and extremely hypocritical and absolutely psychotic. And sometimes it seems logically that it's unstoppable. It's so sick. So oh my goodness, I just love that you spent this time still traveling with me, still listening to me. Thank you. And can you please join me? Even if you don't believe and you don't have indigenous blood and you don't believe in democracy and you don't want to stop your luxuries, because so many of the Amazon products are luxuries. They're luxuries. And those of us who are blessed to have luxuries usually work too hard to be able to afford those luxuries. So we will not willingly give them up, even for good people like John Swartz and the People's Union. So I'm asking you, just one day at a time for 7 days, to try to let go of that luxury, because I need you. If you love me, I'm asking you for your help. You don't have to change your belief system. You don't have to have any empathy for the people who suffer under Jeff Bezos. You don't have to care about the abuses of Amazon workers. You don't have to care about the antitrust corruptions between Jeff Bezos and the government of Washington, D.C. You don't have to care about the Washington Post and its corruption and its killing stories and how it, to me, single-handedly sabotaged our Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign, along with so many other weak Democrats, even in her own party. So if we try for 7 days, one day at a time, from today, Friday, all the way to the 14th, to see if Jeff Bezos is able to speak in the language of boycott, like Uber did. They responded incredibly, or even more advanced, the way Starbucks did. They didn't even wait for a boycott. They responded immediately. So is Jeff Bezos too far gone mentally, criminally, to be able to speak with the American people in the language of boycott? He has more money than the owners of Starbucks. He has more money than the owners of Uber. So he may be too gone to even speak boycott with the American people. But give us a chance to try to speak this exchange language of consumer to tyrant and criminal, breaking antitrust laws, breaking RICO laws, unfairly influencing the entire United States government, seizing exclusive contracts with Washington, D.C., killing stories of the Washington Post, manipulating the 2024 election results, monetizing election campaign contributions to become Wall Street gambling. And of course, everybody gambled more on Donald Trump than they did Vice President Kamala Harris as a calculation of profit margin. So if I believe that we need to get money out of politics, it was never in the great law of peace. Get it out, arrest and convict criminals who break antitrust laws and who do racketeering as organized criminals like Donald Trump, like Elon Musk, like Jeff Bezos. These are all criminals under the United States law and our Constitution, particularly Donald Trump. You look at that 14th Amendment and understand what insurrection is, understand why he was impeached twice, why articles of impeachment can be written right now. How do you violate the oath of office so that you harm the American people, so that you, by goodness, should be impeached, and so should all of the followers and the fruits of the poison tree. That means the entire, what they call MAGA. I try to be civil and respectful, like Representative Al Green. I can't, because of my own belief system. I will not give titles and respect to people who are not civil, fair, just, who are sadistic and criminal and abusive, particularly rapists and pedophiles who are part of international sex trafficking, like Donald Trump. I can't imagine a more immoral, dangerous, harmful human on this planet than Donald Trump. I can't even imagine anyone. I wasn't alive for Adolf Hitler, but I met Donald Trump when I was much younger, and I met him in the worst circumstances ever, and we were not introduced in any respectful way. I was part of kidnapped fashion models, 3 who were under the age of 16, in the international sex trafficking that was orchestrated between Jeffrey Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel when I was my first trip to Paris as a model. And it was the most frightening day in my life, and it altered my sense of safety for the rest of my life. I still do not feel safe once you've been kidnapped and offered and tricked into being used as sex objects after being given alcohol and cocaine. It is something that destroys the human capacity to trust anything. And it also creates a horrible sense of failure as a human being that can create a desire to die, suicidal ideation that doesn't stop. And that's what my one encounter with Donald Trump has done for me. It nearly destroyed me as a human being and destroyed my career one time. That's all I had was one time. I cannot tell you the fear I had that one day. I was so afraid of what the little blonde girl under the age of 16, what she had to experience when he put his nasty hands on her and he chose her. And I just keep praying for all survivors of sex trafficking, especially on that high level that services people who think they're kings, even some of them in royal families. That Jeffrey Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel and that horrible woman who's still living, Maxwell, tricking all sorts of girls from au pairs to fashion models, especially when we're new and we don't know. I didn't know who he was in the sense of what he was going to do to us. I was old enough to know him by pictures. He's the only one I knew. The other men who were just as horrible as he was weren't as famous. And I'm so ashamed that someone so sick and so criminal has ever been allowed into any public service. I wouldn't have anyone like Donald Trump near children. I broke out in a sweat and screaming when I saw the picture of Americans allowing their little girls to be around him, and they were the little girls of the type that he likes to sexually abuse. It was unspeakable. I wish people knew the truth of who Donald Trump actually is, even though his niece keeps trying to teach people and they won't listen. Not the ones who need to listen. You would never let your little girl, your beautiful little girl, especially a blonde, especially anybody that looks like his wives, near him if you knew who he really was. And this thing that women can have to protect predators that they love. Some of them even adore. I saw a young girl on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial who, oh my God, she was blonde and pretty and thin, exactly the way he likes to harm. That's his target. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I'll never forget it. To see these girls adore him, it does something to me that I can't explain. And so any male, no matter what you are, who supports that type of dangerous creature, to me, ought to be ashamed of himself. So for Jeff Bezos to not only support, but to put the money he put into the PACs that made sure that Donald Trump ends up in that White House, even with just less than 1/3 of the voting Americans voting for him. Our system is so corrupt that you can become president if you're chosen by people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk with only 1/3 of the voting public. Then the Electoral College can be manipulated. So you can win even if you lose the popular vote by more than 3 million votes. 2 women have actually won our presidential election. Hillary Clinton and Vice President Kamala Harris. They won despite all of the interventions and the millions of dollars and the Russian, they found out Russian spies who came in to infiltrate Facebook and our social medias to manipulate the American people, at least so that most of us don't vote, right? Because if most of us don't vote, like the 67% that did not vote Democrat or Republican, they didn't want Donald Trump or Vice President Kamala Harris. The majority of Americans didn't want either one. The majority of the Americans are brilliant enough to know that this corruption is unforgivable and it's not even worth voting for. 67% of registered voters did not vote for either a Democrat or Republican president. That's a deep reality for us Americans. So Donald Trump, even with all of the hundreds of millions of dollars of racketeering and propaganda and lies spun by Elon Musk, still only won by just under a third of the registered voters and less votes than Kamala Harris, and still got into the White House. So Americans know that all of this is a lie, but mature Americans who are not masochists do what it takes to lessen our suffering until we can uproot and get rid of the white male supremacy corruption that has destroyed our democracy from the very beginning. Since the British colonizers tried on democracy and decided that only white males, property owners, able-bodied, could be a citizen, right? Interesting, isn't that? That's not democracy at all, but that's how we began. But they utilized the words and the understanding of the great law of peace. And I love the great law of peace. And I have my inheritance in the great law of peace. And I may not be able to speak my mother tongue, but I am rooted in this country on one side of my indigenous blood. They say 70,000 years. And I disagree with my ancestors. I would have never joined the 5 civilized nations, not following after my spiritual beliefs. I would have joined the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. But my ancestors did what my ancestors had to do, and I have to do what I have to do. And I am joining the one called J and the People's Union in this experiment with communicating with Jeff Bezos to see if we can have an agreement that Amazon support its workers, all its people, in the American way, which means equity and justice for all. So not only reincorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion, but improve to the level of American justice, how you treat employees, and how you are able to acquire companies, that we break up the antitrust monopolies under Amazon and allow for true competition based on the product and the services, so that some grocery store like Whole Foods raises the ceiling of Rouse and Giant and Safeway, and they all start greening up their corporations and delivering food in a much more humane and just American way, not foreign white male supremacy corruption way. That is not American. That is a foreign concept that has infected America. And we are uprooting and dismantling that white male supremacy. And we're doing it with some amazing American males, even the ones that might identify as white. They are men, and they are ready for democracy, and they understand justice, and they understand equity, and they understand that Europeans brought diversity. Those of us with melanin were here before. So what some people called the pale-faced ones brought the diversity here. You are the diversity in America. You're the diversity. So how can you be against diversity when you made America diverse? It's insane, because you're lying to yourself and to the American children about America, democracy, and who built America. Where did we get all of that money from when we fought Great Britain? Who deserves justice? Because in democracy, justice is for all. That's literally the way it was practiced for 600 years before the signing of the Declaration of Independence from Great Britain. So the words were beautiful. The intent was through the filter of fearful white male supremacists who didn't know any different. We now know different. We now know that it is a dangerous, psychotic poison to the mind. White male supremacy, there's no such thing. It is a delusion, and it is dangerous, and it is psychotic. And it has to end and get out of America so that we can begin real democracy that balances the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and balances all leadership between rites of passage. Can't be a public servant unless you have been an amazing and humble citizen who pays their taxes. Can't serve the public if you've had no rite of passage and you no longer act out of the American value system that says that you're unfit from the very beginning. And we know all of these men are unfit for American public service. Jeff Bezos is unfit to influence our American government at all, is unfit to have all of these contracts. He's unfit as an American because he harms his workers. That's not the American way. He's unfit and he's criminal. But he is incapable so far of rising to manhood and telling the truth about himself after seeing the truth about the harm he has brought to the American people. And then having what my dad used to say, the kahunas, to make amends and reparations to those he harmed. That is a rite of passage as a man by my culture. And it's the American way, a rite of passage. That's why we hold these offices in such esteem. To be the commander in chief, you must have the most incredible character, so full of empathy, so gracious to women, and submitting to their feminine intuition. Submit and surrender. That's the sign of an advanced masculine in its confidence and its courage, as it can submit and balance itself with the feminine out of respect and humility. And we have so many incredibly qualified American men like that, from every ethnicity, every language group. We have everything we need in this country to realize true democracy. So let's have a conversation with Jeff Bezos, the criminal, in numbers, and see if he's willing to communicate to the American people, who are the ultimate authority in America. We, the people, made you into a multi-billionaire. We, the people, can abolish any despotic government. We, the people, take responsibility for our democracy, and we, the people, will remove every unfit public servant who is a coward and unable to stand up and perform the sworn duties of the office. So thank you so much. And I hope you got something out of this. And I hope for today, maybe you just won't do any of the Amazon things just for today. And I'll check in with you tomorrow and see if we can do tomorrow. It'll be a Saturday. Might be a little harder not to do any Amazon stuff on a Saturday. But see if you can get through tonight, Friday night, without it. If you can, it would mean so much to me. It means so much to the people that Jeff Bezos harms on a regular, like a sadist. It means so much to not be oppressed and harmed and entrapped by one single human out of 330 million. That's how many Americans are here. He's just one. And he's criminal. And he's inhumane. And he's sadistic. Please help us who believe in America and believe in democracy and are willing to try boycotts for 7 days so we can learn from the data and the facts to see what happens engaging with a psychopath. Thank you so very much. Thank you for honoring me, for listening. And thank you for possibly considering joining this boycott. And I'm going to pause the recording and see how this works. Uh-oh, I don't think it paused.